The greatest threat to a successful business disruption does not come from outside. It is an attachment to the model which needs to be made successful. Netflix, if you notice, consistently moved before its competitors actually took its place. It started as a DVD rental company, streaming, original content, then global entertainment, and ad supported and interactive business model. The story is not simply Netflix adopted new technologies or understood the market, but it saw what other companies were not seeing. I'll give you two fantastic examples about this: Blockbuster and Kodak. Why couldn't they think like Netflix and reinvent themselves when they had time in their hand? This is predominantly what happens in businesses. We get comfortable. If you look at Red Ocean strategy, by the way, it talks about how to compete and create your differentiation, and that becomes a blue ocean. Eventually, the blue ocean also becomes crowded, and you need to constantly think about how this happens. When I started working with companies, I saw that they do not reinvent fast because of various reasons: the existing processes, people who are not willing to change, all these things happen. But how do you address all these things is by ensuring you are building a culture of reinvention. That's why Kodak couldn't see that the future is digital cameras. Yes, in 1973 probably or 75, digital was not predominant. But when the innovation came from them, I personally feel they should have kept a tab on the changing market trends and immediately jumped on to the digital when the camera story started. But they didn't. They believed in their traditional film business. And the rest is history. Blockbuster is the same thing. They believed in DVD rentals, late fees, lower fees. All these aspects came into picture. So eventually they were out. Netflix has become world's number one. How did it become? Because it was constantly reinventing itself to ensure it stays ahead in relevant times. And no outside person or anything dictated them. They created an ecosystem or a culture of questioning their existence all the way. Netflix changed the entire story. We deliver movies to your home to watch what you want and wherever you want, and eventually they said we create entertainment for the world. This is reinvention. This is how you as a business will stay relevant in any point of time, even in uncertain times. I talk about these stories because these are fundamental things what we as entrepreneurs need to understand when we create new products and services. That is why we don't see a lot of success, because if you look at companies which made an impact, this is the fundamental reason. They create the structure or the culture in such a way that it's open to innovation, and then they build the company on those innovation processes, which becomes more easy for long time survival. Now, if you look at the fundamental aspects of what companies should look at and understand, first is the value, right? What is the value you are creating to your customer? And in Netflix's story, they said we create entertainment where you want, how you want to watch it. That's the value. That's the convenience. The second part is the execution. Netflix built the technology, data capability, content operation, everything to ensure that they deliver to what the consumer is wanting to see. They went on to create their own shows. They went on to create their own movies, which come only on their platform. This created a differentiation for them. And in the entire process, they ensured they maintain reputation. I will give you a small example which might change the industry, but at this point of time, I'm happy that Netflix is not doing that. Amazon Prime has changed its business model. You had a standard Prime subscription which you can watch movies without ads, but they now put in another layer. If you pay certain amount, you get 2-3 ads, but if you pay the higher limit, you don't get any ads. They created a step between. I would tread carefully on that, because probably in the volume of business you're having, volume of subscription Amazon Prime has today, they might not see the difference, and the small contribution people like me who don't want to see ads pay that additional money might be okay today, but tomorrow I might just get away because I don't want to be spending another few dollars on that kind of a approach. Predominantly, this model came out in India, and probably it works for them. That small profit margin might make it, will definitely not create a dent for them, and it's not a wow factor for anybody. It's the same movie with. Right now I watch with 2 ads, but later I might not just have any ads. That 1 minute I might let go. It's not a value creation for the company, but this comes back to a very strong point which I mentioned, which is reputation. Prime will lose its reputation over a period of time if it continues to do these kind of things. But Netflix, on the other hand, is ensuring consistency. That's what people like. It is not always about money. Once you become big, we can't think that nobody can disrupt us. They will come a day, because all these companies created disrupting some other companies, right? Blockbuster were disrupted by Netflix, right? And eventually one day probably Amazon will be disrupted by Netflix. Who knows that? So I'm giving these examples openly because all of us know what's happening, but these are the things what organizations miss, and they start focusing on these small revenue items which might not create even a dent in their revenue models. So coming back what I talked about, personally I believe from a strategy standpoint or from an organization reinvention standpoint, there are certain steps which I feel will play a very big role. Observe, detach, reimagine, build, and migrate. These are the 5 steps which I keep re-emphasizing to my clients all the time. When you look at observation, keep an eye on how your competitors are behaving and what are they doing. I'll give you another live example. All of us, when Apple got away with the charging brick, there was a huge hue and cry. What did Samsung do? It created an ad. We ship with the charging brick. Oh, people were so crazy. Oh, Amazon does this. Apple stopped it. But eventually what happened? Not a single company in the world, mobile company, gives you a charging brick today anymore. So if you want to become something different, you also need to do something different. Apple saw that before. And Samsung and everybody followed suit. Today, nobody gives us a charging brick. But that 6 months You have to be patient when people are pointing fingers at you. Eventually, they will follow. When I talk about detachment, you need to separate the company's identity from its core value or business model. I've talked about this example before, Rolex, right? Rolex and other luxury watchmakers didn't panic when Apple Watch was launched. People said that's the end of Rolex or Omega or Hublot or anything, that's the end. But today, if you see, Rolex is doubled its revenue over the last few years, even since when the smartwatches came, because it believed in its legacy. It believed in its handcrafted product. And today, to buy a Rolex watch, depending on the place you live, you want a very particular model, it's minimum 6 months waiting. That is the power of believing in your product. They didn't panic. They focused on what they deliver. And years later, the work shows itself. When you have to reimagine, you have to detach. Ensure you stick to the values. I stick to my core values, but I constantly detach myself from the values and see how I'm delivering value to my client in the boundaries of my value. So I keep saying this, don't fall in love with your product, but fall in love with your client, because client is the one who's going to help you sustain on the long run and in today's fast changing world. So building that. Another classic example is the video I did last week on Patagonia, right? They went, told the world, don't buy our products. See if you can reuse them, repair them, right? Why can't they say, oh, come back, we'll give you 5% discount, you buy a new product? Their bottom line would increase, right? No. They ensured, they demonstrated the purpose of the company through the work they do. And they're strong as ever. So when we run our businesses, many a times we get caught in that short wins. But the moment you look at long wins, the short wins walk away. And don't think, you can ask me or you can say, Hari, you know what, I'm not going to be there for next 100 years. I want to make as much money as possible. Absolutely, bang on. I'm not saying no. When I say long run, it is the time frame what you have set for your product or technology or whatever you're doing. You have to reinvent. The next is building the capabilities, what are required. As you constantly keep building your product, you also have to build a culture in the organization where people start looking at what is it next I can do or what organization can do. That's what becomes crucial for an organizational success. And the last one is migrate. Move your customers' investment and organization attention from the current model into the future model without letting them know. Netflix is a classic example. We were renting DVDs, but they slowly switched us to mobile devices. And today they offer so many other things and everything is one. So the customer is moving from one point to other without realizing they're using the same product, they're using the same company, but at the back end, the company is talking in a different way. So in summary, what I wanted to share today was the importance of reinvention. And that's what I call my approach as Liquid Ocean. I'll talk about Liquid Ocean a little bit more in the coming videos, but these are precursors to certain values I have been building in this framework to deliver value to my client. I hope you like this video. If you can, do subscribe and share, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye-bye.